Okay, so first, thank you all for doing this, and I hope everyone's loved ones are safe during this COVID crisis, staying healthy, and I want to thank you for the work you do in drawing attention to a fair tax system. There's no doubt we're facing the most severe public health crisis in 100 years, the most severe economic crisis in 75 years. We all know 222,000 now Americans have lost their lives. Unemployment has reached the highest level in modern history. 3 million Americans are relying on some kind of unemployment assistance. And 100,000 small businesses have closed their doors permanently. I feel that. My dad was a small businessman, and I know how much they struggle. He's sort of a funny guy. He was an exterminator. He had this little exterminating business, and he says, "I'm 97. DDT couldn't have been too bad." But in any case, thank God he's doing well. So we tried to meet the occasion, we Democrats, and I pushed very hard. I was one of the main authors of the CARES Act, which provides $2 trillion in critical assistance for workers, for families, for people, small businesses. We secured, one of the things I'm proudest of was the $600 unemployment insurance, the enhanced unemployment benefits. Not only was it $600, but it went to all kinds of people who had never been covered, gig workers, part-time workers, freelancers, and things like that. So it was much broader. And that that and PPP accounted for more of our economic, the economic bounce back a little bit in the late spring and summer than just about anything else. It also delivered economic assistance, as you know, in terms of cash payments. We had a 50% refundable employee retention tax credit for small businesses. I made sure nonprofits were included in the PPP because so much of our economy is nonprofit, and they give so much help to people who need help. So that was very good. We delivered economic assistance. The direct cash payment, as you know, was refundable. We put in $30 billion for education in New York. We got $1 billion of that, so they didn't have to cut school aid, which was important. But here is the problem with that legislation. Everyone at that time, COVID will be gone by the summer. So much of it was short term. The PPP was 8 weeks. The unemployment insurance expired July 31st. And the economic crisis clearly is not over. Bottom line is very simple. And that is that as long as COVID is still here and we're about to undergo a second wave, we're not going to overcome our economic crisis. And so Nancy Pelosi, we started this time in the House. That's better because it's not controlled by Republicans. But I worked very closely with her, and we put the HEROES Act together. And some of the tax issues that I know you care about, an expansion of the EITC and an expansion of the child tax credit. There's no better way to get money into the pockets of poorer people who are working than the EITC, and the child tax credit is needed for burgeoning families. We also expanded the eligibility of EITC and CTC by making it all refundable, which is very, very important for people of lower income. And we also proposed something which I hope you'll get behind, called the Economic Justice Act. It took took $350 billion out of the $400 billion slush fund for big corporations and put it into investments in community, long-term and immediate investments into communities of color. It would establish a $15,000, for instance, tax credit to expand home ownership in communities of color, new renters tax credit, expanding the low income tax credit, which is vital for building housing for poor people. It's one of the most important things, and it did that. So we did all that. Now we're fighting to get it done. As you've probably seen, the Senate is the barrier. The McConnell Senate is the barrier. There are 20 Republican senators. You may not believe this, but it is true, and McConnell said it himself. 20 Republican senators who say they don't want to spend any money, even though it's the greatest economic crisis since the Depression, the greatest health crisis since the Spanish pandemic flu. One of them said not one thin dime. That's incredible. And so we're fighting to get it done. But as long as McConnell controls the Senate, we won't. If I become majority leader, obviously we'll do this and other things. Let me just finish on the Trump tax cuts. The president's economic agenda, we know, benefited major corporations and the wealthiest of Americans over working class Americans. The 2017 tax bill, the president said each worker would get a $4,000 raise. That hasn't happened. The lion's share of these tax cuts have not gone to middle class families and working families. The tax bill failed to boost business investments that benefit the American people, despite the fact that they said all these tax cuts would cause people to invest. But we all know that the vast majority of it, 56%, went to buybacks. I'd like to get rid of the buybacks. I think buybacks don't put money back into a corporation to invest in its workers, invest in technology, but just puts it in the hand of shareholders. And 80% of the stocks are owned by the 10% wealthiest people. So it's no longer the great equalizer. And so that's the bottom line. Our economy is now in a K-shaped recovery. The people who are recovering best are the wealthiest people. We need to focus on, when the average American looks and says the stock market's gone up while the economy's in trouble, they say something's wrong, and they're right. And the bottom line is we have to focus on working people, on poor people, on getting both in terms of tax policy like the ITC and CTC, and in terms of fiscal policy, in terms of the kinds of things we advocated, change that. If I get to be majority leader, I will. I'll continue to work on that. I thank you. And now I got to make sure the votes, we're trying to delay the Supreme Court as much as possible. We don't have that many tools. McConnell has taken them out of the toolbox, but we're using the ones we have. So thank you for listening, and on to victory in November. Thank you very much.